Hello, everybody. I'm Jill Renee Feeler, and I'm here with Janet Eichhorst. Hi, Janet.
Hi, Jill.
Our topic today is conflict and how we deal with conflict, how Janet and I handle conflict and process conflict and meander through the conflict in the world and our lives. And we're not sharing it from the perspective of we know everything and we know exactly what other people should do. We offer this in terms of we have some strategies that are pretty successful in terms of allowing ourselves to be our soulfulness, to be our source energy, to be the giftedness we know that we are, and that we know all that life is giftedness amidst conflict. So we have a way of looking at things and acting out in the light, the source energy we are amidst conflict that might be useful to other people. So if we're preaching to the choir, then yay, we're glad you have this stuff figured out. And if you're like, I am in the midst of conflict right now and I'm really stuck, I hope you get new ideas and a fresh perspective. And maybe even new confidence in yourself that you do have choices, even if it doesn't feel that way. So anyway, that's my kickoff.
Thanks, Jill. There's so many different aspects of conflict that we can talk about. And I'm laughing because right before we started recording, I started sharing with Jill about a particular situation in my apartment complex that I will share about because it's all about conflict and how the community deals with it, how I deal with it, and navigating it. And it's kind of a silly example, but it's real for people. Um, so we have probably a 30-page lease. It's long, but one of the details that they don't talk a lot about in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed is what we can have on our patios. And we all have fairly good sized patios with, railing so we can put plants out there and outdoor furniture. And apparently those are the two things that are legally allowed. And people have put all kinds of things on their patios. And so the conflict has come about because we recently got a notice that they're going to come basically look at our patios to see if we're in compliance. And they gave more detailed information about what's allowed and what's not allowed. And people are up in arms. Quite literally. And one of the things that is very interesting about this, because the property manager lives on site. And when you look at her patio has things on it that are not in compliance. And not just one thing. She has a lot of things. So much so that I couldn't help myself as I've walked by since she's lived here, which hasn't been all that long, less than a year, several months. I'll go by and I'll take snapshots of the not compliant items on our patio. And so, yeah, so the porch police are coming tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day. And so, wow, lots of unrest. Lots of this isn't fair. People have invested money in certain things that they have purchased to have a better life that pretty much are not going to be allowed anymore. I mean, it got to the extent, and I kind of had to eye roll this. They put something about what color curtains you could have in your windows. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going Nazi. I don't necessarily like that expression, but very controlling, I will say. And so, wow. And so I happened to walk by and I talked to a lot of the neighbors. I've been in this community for, over 4 years. So I know a lot of people here and there are long-term residents here. And so I'm talking to one woman and that I talk to quite frequently, and the property manager lives right across from her. So she's got a bird's eye view of everything that's happening. And so the notice comes in, and she can't read because she's got visual impairment. I was like, oh, do you want me to read that for you? So I read this thing, and we both just start cracking up and roll our eyes. We're like, really? Because the woman whose name on the bottom of this thing lives right across and she is not in compliance. So what do I do as a really conscientious member of the community here? I get to look at my own patio, which I did have some non-outdoor furniture out there, and my patio was more cluttered than I liked it. So am I gonna try to pass it off? Am I gonna comply? Right? So this is a very rich example, and I've heard, no, absolutely no feeding the birds or any of that because it brings in animals. And I could give you 4 examples of how that's happened and caused destruction on the property. So, I mean, this is what happens in our world all the time, and this is an example where I can't just refuse to talk to them because, well, somebody owns the building, it's not me, and I'm living here under a lease, and compliance is an issue. Right? So, and I'm actually gonna be out of town. and and they said in the it's kind of funny to me. They said that they will give a 10-day notice if you're not in compliance. And I was like, great. So I get a 10-day notice and I won't be back till after 10 days. I think I better do something about this, right? Because I don't know what they'll do then, right? So, wow, what an experience for me to not be overly supportive of people's super reactionary viewpoints because that's not how I'm wired. And I'm really into community building and honoring people and, taking care of myself in the process. Right. So I cleaned up my stuff. Right? Looked at my porch and I was like, "Yeah, I would try." I mean, you could probably pass, and then I did make a decision to leave one thing up. You know, my my
A
my
non-complying thing? Is this
non-complying.
out of defiance, Janet?
It's actually kind of a safety issue, I think. I really do think it is because my porch is very long and there's one light that they provide over the door, and I can't see all the way down my patio. And there's it's an apartment complex. There's people without homes all around here and people that cut through the lot. So I decided to leave the lights up that I are strung from these hooks that were pretty much all there when I moved in. And a lot of people have these lights. So I had justified that in my mind, and I'll stand by that one. And if I'm asked to take them down, I will. That was my decision. And then I did share something about how and I felt like this was something that I wanted to do. I shared with the management team how people are upset, and I'm including myself in that there is unequal enforcement of the rules that have been put out. And I haven't heard back yet. We'll see what happens. But I mean, this is the stuff we get to navigate every single day.
This is such a great example because whether it's apartment rules, homeowners associations are a regular source of conflict for a lot of people. Not everybody, but it is a common thing. So I love your example. And I mean, patio police is just such a great term.
And it's accurate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, one of the big navigational things for me was people were like, "That's not right. They shouldn't do that. I'm gonna do this in response to that, da da da." And I was like, "I'm not gonna support that sort of negative thinking or entitlement or blah blah blah." It's like I can't go there with people. And yet I'm not gonna alienate these people and I'm gonna share my opinion in a respectful way, and then they can do what they want with it.
There's so many ways that I mean, think of all the choices. I just invite everybody, just pause for a second and think of all the different ways that any resident in this apartment complex could be responding to this. They could be completely antagonistic. I'm not taking that down. It's my fountain and I'm leaving it up. You just tell me don't you tell me what to do. You know what I mean? That's in my view, that's creating conflict, right? So
Mm,
I loved your respectfulness about I'm choosing to live here. These are the rules. Is there some hypocrisy? Yes. And I'll do what I can to sort of point that out to see if we can make this a bit more fairly applied to everybody, because that's not right. That it should apply to some individuals, but not others. And there can be bias. I mean, it's really, and I've heard, obviously as a realtor, I've heard so many just really petty kind of stories about an HOA. Just literally, it just seems like they're nitpicking on one resident because maybe they don't like them for other reasons that they can't enforce. So they're going to just go after every little thing just to try to get them to leave, or I don't know what. But anyway, so there's a lot of choices in conflict, and we're hopefully choosing for where we live, and there are some rules of engagement with where we live and laws of society. And I love that example.
mm.
Yeah. Let me think of an example. This one is so silly, but it's let me think of one that is I want to pick one that's relatable. Oh, this I'm just going to go for the hardest one, and I mentioned to Janet I was going to share this one. So there's the online version of blocking somebody, literally, where they can't see any of your online activity. You can't see them either. I am definitely a proponent of blocking someone where somebody is initiating un, in your view, unwarranted or unwanted or undesirable conflict in your life, and you're just wanting to offer your ideas to the world. I do believe we have that option. I don't believe that that means you have to engage with every commenter or every DM that you get in response to that. So, over the many years that I've been on social media publicly, there have been individuals, it's not a long list, but I'm like, yeah, they don't like it. Okay, there's other options. You don't have to tell me why. You don't have to get personal about the length of my nose or anything now. Come on, I'm not here for that commentary. So my initial response is to literally, and this, if people are going to go, Jill, you can't handle it. I'm just going to tell you what I do first, and then maybe I'll defend myself. Maybe I won't. I delete the comment so that it's not on my social media platforms. So I delete their comment and I block them. It's a non engagement. They've already shown me their behavior. And I've already decided what my line in the sand is. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And I've had other social media people. I do want to explain this because I am friendly with other huge social media type people that are way bigger on social media than I am. And they're like, no, you have to engage with that, Jill. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't agree with you. I don't think I have to. I don't think I have to engage with every commenter." And they're like, "Well, it's gonna mess up your algorithm." And I'm like, "You know what? I'm okay with that." I'm okay with that because I've decided the role that I want to say play, the role that I want to serve, and the service I want to offer, and the other aspects that come with that. I love myself enough and I see the choices more neutrally and less obligatory than some people do. So I've done it differently. I do know for some of them that the drama and the conflict that they actually do naturally get or attract has helped their algorithm. They have gotten bigger because of the hate that they get and the love that they get. So I get it that for some of them it can work, but I think they handle it better than I do. I'm one of those people that I was just trying to do something nice. I'm like, I don't understand why you're criticizing my nose now. You know what I mean? Because it's weird out there. It's weird what people will give you feedback on. So on social media, I'm a big fan of in terms of conflict.
Mm.
I don't know you. I'm not here for this and I'm saying no. So I'm deleting it and I'm blocking you. I don't even go any further. I don't warn them. I don't say that you get it. This is your first warning. They're just out. By the way, some people say, well, you're limiting free speech. I'm actually not, because I'm not preventing them from saying it anywhere else. They can talk about my nose anywhere they want to, but I'm not making space for that on my platforms. Okay. So that's how I get around the free speech criticism. Yeah, I have definitely blocked people on my phone. So people that I know in real life.
Mm,
for my own reasons, whether I just felt toxicity, I just felt like, you know what, they just seem like they want to cause drama, they want to cause trouble. I don't think they're here for their best self or my best self, and I'm not here for that. Normally with those I will kind of go, I don't know what this is, but I love myself and I love you. I want nothing but good for you and I want nothing good for me. And whatever is happening here with this engagement, I'm not here for that, so I'm blocking you now. Again, I wish you nothing but well. And then I block them. That includes blood relatives, you guys. And that's hard. That's really hard. But I literally have a blood relative that have been estranged from for years. They bring out the absolute worst in me. I'm assuming I bring out the worst in them, but everything they bring into my life starts off sweet and ends up being highly problematic. And just, I mean, there's mental illness there, there's drug addiction there, and there's just enough dysfunction that, again, I want them to get well. I'm not pretending I'm their savior. I want them to get all the help that they need, and I love myself enough to not be the recipient of that bullshit and nonsense.
mm,
Yeah, yeah, just got real right there, huh?
mm,
This is how we deal with toxicity, and that's an extreme example, but I'm just saying the lengths I'm willing to go to that some people would be like, "Wait, you have, like, a family member blocked on phone, and every time she creates a new profile, I block it too." I have 0 time for any of that.
mm. There's so many choices with this. There really are. And it really does come down to that internal guidance system for me. I'll share because I still, hmm, I was just thinking how I feel about this because, I was in a 32-year relationship. We split, and I think that was mutual, regardless of who initiated it. And I got blocked on Facebook, and I still think about that sometimes. And I have lots of different feelings about it. And so the best I do is just to give myself a big hug around that, and I just really find it fascinating. It's like, wait, what did I do that was so egregious? And listen to that, because I'm making that about me versus maybe she doesn't want to see me for reasons that are valuable to her and have nothing to do with me. And what a good example. If I personalize something that I really don't know the underlying reasons. I mean, I could come up with a whole list of reasons why, she did that, but it's none of my business.
Oh,
I have a great life.
it's such a beautiful approach, Janet. I'm sure that people have blocked me. I can't think of them, but maybe it's probably just because I don't know.
Mm,
Um, no, there's got to be somebody. I'll try and think of one. But anyway, I would just be like, oh, okay, they didn't. I don't know what they didn't want to see of mine, or didn't want me seeing of theirs. I don't know, but I hope they're happy.
yeah,
And I'm gonna choose to be happy too, even though I'm confused or perplexed or whatever.
yeah.
Um, anyway, it is fascinating. And I love these examples because we're not trying to pretend that everything can be kumbaya. These are real, this is the real world. This is totally in real life, right? So are there times when conflict can be neutralized and maybe even harmonized? Yeah, that's awesome when that happens. But sometimes it's just like, you know what? We just don't go together. And, I love a metaphor, and I love a food metaphor even more. I would never be working hard to make pickles go with ice cream, ever. I never will. It's not like, no, these have to, I need them to go together. They should go together. They're both food items. One is salty, one is sweet. Salty and sweet go great together. These need to go together. Pickles and ice cream. I'm just going to work really hard on it. So when I notice a human relationship or any sort of a dynamic, even with an institution, I'm like, this is pickles and ice cream for me. I don't need everyone to agree. I don't need a, community meeting. I'm just going to go, this is pickles and ice cream. And I'm not good with pickles and ice cream. So I'm going to see the choices I have and make them. And there we go.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a scenario that might be helpful for us to talk about that's, well, deeply challenging for people. And not to say that these haven't been challenging. I mean, anytime I allow or interpret somebody's else's action, if I allow that to affect how well I'm doing or how great my life is or a distraction of any way, shape, or form, especially if there's a high likelihood I will never, ever, 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 ever get that information. Like, really? Like, what's that about for me? And just like really let it go. And sometimes there's other stuff entangled in that. So it takes a little bit more self-searching in that way. But I'm trying to think, like, in our world today, like, what is one of the things that's difficult? I mean, we've talked about politics and family that's come up multiple times in our conversations. Anything else coming up? I mean, I want to get a little meaty here. What's the meatiest way that we could address conflict and how we deal with it and something that's affecting our lives in such a way that it really matters?
There's
Wow.
so many examples. I'd like to pick a good one too. I want you to pick one that feels right too, and I'll do the same.
Mm,
I guess one that I'll pick is politics. I mean, I do vote. I know some people don't even vote anymore. That's their version of apathy slash wisdom. I don't know which, but anyway, um, when I vote for somebody, I'm not looking for a hero. And I'm not pretending
mm,
that the other choices are villainous. I am looking at all of it as a very complicated individual that we're seeing one carefully represented image of them that we hope is going to vote in a certain way or create policies in a certain way that align with what I hope for in terms of my community or
mm,
whatever that constituency is. I don't understand the individuals that are acting as if a vote for somebody is pretending that you are saying yes, 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 yes to all aspects of them personally, professionally, historically, et cetera. I don't understand. That seems like a very idealistic and overly simplistic and an incredibly unrealistic view of any human. It's like, oh well, they're perfect, they're my guy, they're my gal. I don't understand that. And other individuals like why would you vote for any of them? Because they're going to have authority over that affect our lives. That's why. I mean, is the system perfect? This goes back to number 46, right?
mm, mm,
Is the system perfect? No, but I will make the choices and take the actions I can to
mm.
try to, I want to say, make a difference, try to express what I'm hoping happens. So I guess that's a real version of conflict that I have. Even and it actually that I like that example because I apologize for the stage of my cold. Um, I'm trying to mute every time I cough because I love you guys that much. But it also addresses the conflict I feel with other voters and how or non-voters and their kind of imposing their beliefs and mindsets on others. I don't appreciate that. And I don't like the condescension of you vote. I'm just it's so condescending, it's so overconfident. I just think it's very unhelpful. And it's fine that they feel that way, but you don't need to be so dismissive of someone that does vote because they're trying to work with the system that we have.
Mm. It's funny. I came up with a local political example, and it has to do with a community I'm involved in locally. And we were talking after this meeting that we had, and I brought up this man works. Yeah, what the heck? I'll share specifics. The city of Sedona is having some conflict going on with the police chief and the mayor. And the police chief filed this rather large, I don't know how many pages it is, but this rather large document that has been created over years about problems that she's seen about how the mayor has interacted with her and her department. And then the mayor put some retort to her, which was much shorter. And part of it, and maybe the whole case, is about discrimination for the police chief. She's female, and that's what she's alleging. And so I was talking to this man, and he's like, "Yeah, I've talked to the mayor. I talked to the mayor, I talked to the city council, I like to talk with those guys." And he's like, "And I just don't see it." And I was like, "Okay." And so here I am with myself thinking, and I said, "Well, if he actually interfered with the actual workings of the police department, that's wrong. It's specifically stated that that's not his job, that's a city manager's job. And I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but if he did that, that's wrong." And what I noticed in this conversation, and I've seen this happen locally more times than I can count, you meet somebody and they're nice. You meet somebody and they're kind to you. And you may even, I don't know, respect them for the level of authority they have in your community. And then they kind of automatically apply that to a situation where they don't think that that person did any wrong. And I'm like, huh, like that just. So, I'm generally aware when that happens because I'm fairly certain that's the kind of stretch that this person made in this situation. And I am so not okay with that. You know, like, let's look. You weren't talking, or you weren't looking at the records, or you weren't examining, you don't have any information about that. And yet, because you liked him and hadn't seen it, you assume he didn't do it. Yeah. And I was just like, wow. And I'm fairly certain I will see this person again. And I have to use a bit of self control because I want to go say some other things I thought about, proving a point that that's not right. And it's one of those examples where I just get to like let it ride and see if something else gets presented that I can have a more neutral, conversation about. So I don't want to not address something that I see, and I want to say something in a respectful way where I honor him and me. And I also don't want to go after somebody because I think that, well, they should change their mind or, whatever it is. Sway them to, it's like, open your mind, like, so it's wow, wow, wow. A member of my community I will see again. And I was pretty clear that I made some strong points about how I felt. And I can feel good about that and then let it go.
That is such a great example because so the police chief is female, the mayor is male.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the friend, it's a friend that you're talking about that said,
An acquaintance,
okay,
know him better.
friendly acquaintance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's
I just
male.
wanted to get the who we were talking about there. Thank you. It's such a great example because there are, I think, an amazing number of instances where an individual is conflicted and in the midst of conflict with another person, and it's happening in such a way that no one else can see it. because the person that's receiving the conflict or the offense or whatever it is experiencing a version, a layer of that individual that no one else is seeing. And that is a very lonely place to be. And individuals, I do wonder sometimes if individuals that can be offensive actually have a subconscious strategy for kind of like, oh, I'm going to put this really well maintained mask of being the good person in all of these other instances. But then with certain individuals, I'm just going to have fun with being an asshole, or I'm just going to allow myself or intentionally be a version of myself that is not what I would present to any of these other individuals, but I'm going to give them a different version of me. And it puts that individual in a very difficult position because they have a very hard time getting support, receiving support, because of the fact that they're getting a completely different version of that individual. So if you're in a situation where you need public support or you need a backup witness or somebody to like, no, I believe her, she doesn't lie, it can be really difficult. And I mean, hugs to anyone that's in that type of situation, because accountability can be non-existent in those instances, and that is just completely unfair. It's not right, but it happens a lot. Um, there was another part that I wanted to add to that. Oh, as it relates to conflict, I would encourage people to really reflect on, amidst the conflict, is there anything that you feel you need to happen as a result of that conflict?
Mm.
Like, I have to get the public to understand who this, in your case, in your example, who this mayor really is, right? Misogynistic, patriarchal asshole, you know what I mean? If you need that to happen for you to be okay, I would encourage you to take a step back into yourself and just go, okay, I would like for that to happen. I would like for there to be justice, accountability, exposure, and disclosure, all those things. But I may not get it. And what will I choose to be in myself if I don't get that? And then it may be really helpful to also ask yourself, do I need that? Right? It's a hard realization that we as humans can easily kind of click into this idea that we know exactly what's going on, we know exactly how to make this right, and sometimes those things don't happen, or they're not within our control, or they're highly improbable. And again, we are again with our own choices of, well, how do I want to choose to be okay with this, given that this is a completely messed up situation? I don't want this, and that's not okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because am I creating more conflict in a non-healthy way in response to the conflict I see? And that can build and build and build. I mean, yeah, I mean, the guy I was talking to said, "Yeah, well, I know he's not in it for the money," talking about the mayor. Like, that's not why he got elected. So he's, like, proving his point. Like, he's giving me information why I should agree with him, and I was like, "Well, that's interesting. That's information. Let me pay attention to that," right? And so I can see where he's coming from, but where am I coming from? Because I don't wanna make more conflict in a way that's not helpful, because I may end up having a different conversation with this guy if I get more into supporting this organization I'm in with him, knowing what I experienced with him about how we talked about the mayor and the police chief. And we talked about that, paying attention to how people are, and then using that very wisely in my own interactions with people. So there's a lot of layers of this, and there's a lot of different levels to look at what is actually going on. And I have been not accurate in some of my assessments. And so I don't want to be too invested in thinking that I am right. And in this situation, I was like, well, I don't know that I'm right or not, but if this is true, like really using my language in such a way that I'm being clear about what I know for myself and what I don't. Because there's a lot of misinformation, and we've been talking about that for some time, and that will probably be revisited again and again.
I mean, even the decisions about, estrangement and people that you're like, "I'm just not gonna do this." Like, I'm gonna block them on social media or somebody in your personal life that you're like, "No, what? I'm like, we're not in a relation we're not friends anymore," or whatever. "I don't wanna hang out with them," or whatever. Sometimes that part of us can go, "Well, maybe I'm missing something." It's totally I mean, you guys get to choose whether you take more time to make a possibly a what seems like a dramatic decision like that. But I would also just ask you to trust yourself and your own interactions with that person.
Mm,
You may be the only one getting that layer of that person. So you'll never have coinciding information from other people validating what you see and hear and experience with that individual. Um, I just I know it gets really complicated for individuals that are in conflict, and they're like, everybody, and this happens a lot in families. Um, I've had so many different clients that were in a marriage with a public figure, and they're like, Jill, everybody loves them. And I'm like, no, energetically, I feel that. And they're like, that's not how they are at home. That's not who they are. It's if we got that version of them, the family would love them too, but that's not who they really are around the rest of us. So you can again, it can feel really lonely and really isolating because the conflict doesn't exist to other people. They don't have the data you have. So I would just encourage people to make the choices you possibly need or want to make based on the data and the version of that person you are getting, because that's the only one that matters. It doesn't matter if, and I want to make another example, but I'd rather stay on the topic. It doesn't matter if they're nice to everybody else and an absolute nightmare to you. What matters is they're a nightmare to you.
mhm.
And why? That's a very good question. You may never get an answer to that. There might be mental illness or some sort of a psychiatric diagnosis kind of going on with that individual. I don't know. I don't know if it matters why. I don't hang around for the why. I just take the data that I have and go, "Oh, this is a pattern, and, like, this is not okay, and I'm not gonna ask anyone else to understand this." I think that's another tip for somebody that's dealing with conflict with a specific situation or a specific individual. You don't need to go get support. No, you don't need everyone to agree with you. And I would encourage you not to. Just let it be between you and that individual. We have conflict. I don't know why, but these are the choices I've made. You don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to go get everybody to also make the same decision you made. I think that just creates more conflict because you're asking them to trust a version of them that they've never seen, never known, and can't know.
Yeah, this gets really meaty when you look at personas, and this is very active right now on in all of sort of the outward, whether it's corporations, whether it's political leaders. And so this gets into how do I deal with the conflict when the information I have about this person is different than the information somebody else has about it. Because we both believe that our fact sources are accurate. And there's a lot of accurate information out there, and then there's a lot of made up stuff, which is based on personas and all kinds of different agendas or ideas or manipulations. And we've talked about this a lot. So, what's your personal strategy? Like, how do I deal with that? And for me, it's about being really clear how I feel and that I get to have my own experience. And nobody, but nobody can F with that unless I let them. And I don't have to go creating signs or go with a loudspeaker down the street, trying to convince people when I'm solid enough and confident enough and humble enough, really, to know that this is how I feel now. And I might even change my mind tomorrow, but right now, this is how I feel. Because it's been so easy for people to disregard their own knowings and feelings. We have a term for it, lots of terms for it. But the whole gaslighting effect, when somebody tells you something long enough and then you begin to believe it, I mean, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me do whatever I gotta do to sort through that. And the source of information that I use, I mean, empowerment means that I can look inwardly at the God consciousness that I am and see what's true for me that has nothing to do with anybody else. And we're getting more and more in a place where we need to do that if we want any information because the outside sources are not trustable. So the conflict, why is our world kind of such a mess right now? Because there's a lot of conflict, people arguing about what's true and what's not true. And you can, see news channels completely juxtaposed, right up against each other, different. So that's conflict. And so, man, get your strategy, man. Get your game on, your game, your information, and then make really, 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 really good decisions about what you talk about and with whom you talk about it. Those are your choice points. And
If anybody.
yeah,
If you talk about it with anybody.
that's right. Now, for me, I need to talk things out with people so I get clear about how I feel because I feel so many competing, viewpoints out there. When I talk about it the way I'm wired, I get clearer about how I feel. But I don't do that with very many people.
Oh, I'm really hoping that this is helpful to people. I guess I wanna give another example, Janet, because I feel like it is related. I have a couple I could pick from. One is for anyone that's building a house or doing a remodel. There's gonna be conflict, and it's really it's really hard. It's really hard, and sometimes they're smooth, and sometimes they're not, and I have, as an agent, a situation with a new build. It's residential, and I feel like I'm just trying to keep everybody happy and the work continuing and everything's good because it could go a different way where my clients where it doesn't go well. So we're all aware of the risks and we're all just kind of like, okay, let's just keep rowing the boat and keep like, okay, everybody good, everybody good. So we're almost to the finish line, but it's been a nail biter and very stressful. So um, and we're doing a remodel right now. They're doing stucco work. And it's like, we've had a porta potty outside our house for, I think, 18 months now at this point. And I'm like, why is this taking so long? And I'm beginning to think it's something like, mm, like somebody's stealing money and they're not paying subs or, you know, somebody is addicted to drugs and stealing something. I don't even I'm trying to come up with some story that would make sense for how ridiculous this is. The work is getting done, but I'm like, "I what is happening?" And it's my husband and I are just constantly kinda trying to kind of, vent and all these like this. I mean, I like what's been done so far, but this should not be taking this long. But it is. And what do we want to do about it? Do we want to continue? Do we want to write the next check for the next phase? There's a lot of aspects. But another example that it touches on something different. Jeff hired somebody to fix the drywall crack in a storage unit that we have. It's the type of storage unit, it's like a luxury storage unit where you own it. You can fit 2 RVs, I think, in this thing. It's huge. And you own it. You have the deed. It's not a rental. It's very fancy, really. Anyway, there's a drywall crack where it shouldn't be, and it seems to indicate some sort of structural thing. Jeff found this drywall guy, and I know drywall guys. So I was like, "Why didn't you?" And then I was like, "Never mind." So he found somebody, and he was like, "He reminds me a lot of." And there's some just I maybe it's because we're in Idaho. We got some interesting characters in Idaho. Maybe everybody does. I don't know, but I just know I kind of go, just like I don't know, like I don't know. There's just a lot of questions I can have about certain people, but they have skills and they were recommended or whatever. But this guy has been one drama after another. He's like and Jeff said, "I don't know, he's not finishing the work, he's been paid half of the money up front, and he's not finishing and his reasons for not finishing and not being able to show up is like one Lifetime movie after another." And I'm just like, "We've gotta cut him off. He's never gonna finish." And so Jeff normally goes to, in those instances, the stick versus because he's tried the carrot, right? Stick is you need to get it done or else. Carrot is, well, could you do part of it tomorrow? Or sorry, that's going. You're just nice and again try to keep everybody rowing the boat. So he's like, well, then and if I don't get I want the deposit back, full deposit, or I'm going to take you to small claims court. And I'm like, I mean, do what you need to do. But with some instances like that, they've already shown you they're not trustworthy. They're not going to start getting trustworthy with a threat or with more money being promised. Can I give you a bonus to finish within the week? It's just, they've already shown you their inconsistency or frailties or whatever else is going on that I don't want to know why. I just know they're not the right person, that they're not going to finish this job. And I say that with confidence because of the evidence we already have in the short 2 weeks that we've known this guy. It's to me so impossible slash improbable that all of these actual dramatic things could be going on. So either his life is just an absolute mess, which is terrible, but I don't want to rely on somebody whose life is an absolute mess. And they're showing it and bringing it to my life. They're not just hiding it like nothing's going on. I can do the job, right? Which is what some of us do. You don't need to know my personal life because this is a professional relationship and I'm going to get your job done no matter what. We wouldn't even know, right? I had a house cleaner like that too. I knew everything that was going on dramatically with her dad and his Alzheimer's. She's cleaning my house. I don't want to know. I don't want to know this. I don't want her to talk to me about it. I've got my own, reality going on here. I thought it was very unprofessional and she didn't last long. I couldn't tell her really why. I don't remember if I ever did. She didn't ask, but I just found a different house cleaner because I'm like, this is not the relationship or the dynamic I want to have in my house. Because then I'm worrying about Angie. I wonder how her dad's doing. I'm like, I've got enough to worry about. But anyway, so conflict can be brought to us when it was never ours to begin with. And you don't have to, I want to say, put up with it. You don't have to be okay with that. You don't have to accept conflict that was never yours, didn't need to be yours, and doesn't have to be yours. So again, we have choices. And sometimes we forget those choices because, well, they're nice or wow, they really need this money. And that's something I've seen less than professional individuals do a lot, is they want to tell you their story because they want you to keep them on in that paid role, almost out of like you feel bad enough for them that you'll never fire them. And that is so messed up. I don't wanna hire a house cleaner because or keep a house cleaner because I feel bad about her dad's Alzheimer's. That's just I just feel the emotional, energetic baggage with that is just not something. It's definitely a boundary line that gets crossed for me. Anyway, so again, I might be unlikable by saying that out loud, but I think that's true. I would never want somebody to hire me because they feel bad that my sister died this year. No. So do people know? Some people do and some people don't. But I don't need them to know because I've delivered with my clients. They don't, yeah. Anyway, it's just really just different choices. Anyway, personal preferences.
I laugh because I've had a lot of construction experience myself, and it's I wondered oftentimes, and I might have shared this before, if I was the one that has the opportunity to point out when people aren't in their integrity, because it seemed to happen so much. Like, I don't know what other people do, but yeah, there's money involved here. We have an agreement about what we're going to do, and you're not doing that. So let's address this directly. And I don't know what other people do. I don't know. But I've had so many opportunities in that arena, and it seems to be ripe. So it's another example of in our daily lives, conflict and roles or agreements that we have with people that are not personal. It doesn't mean we're not friendly. And we've talked about that a lot too. Like, how close are they in my circle? I want to be a great community member. And if I hire people for a job, I'm going to maintain the choice about what I share and how I participate in that. And sometimes people don't take responsibility for that choice point, and then it gets really messy and, enmeshed, and all kinds of stuff can happen. So that's another way that we can contribute to a level of conflict that doesn't have to happen, depending on how we navigate it. And I really hope people make really good choices around that.
We went in some surprising directions on the topic of conflict, but I kind of like it because there's probably a lot of different strategies for how to handle conflict, and there's probably some really great ones that are repeated over and over and over again. And I hope that we addressed it from a new or original perspective that is actually a bit more fundamental on like an inner child level, subconscious level, kind of the dirtier aspect, maybe the rougher aspect of conflict that those top 10 tips for conflict don't address because they're just more nuanced. There's something more complicated about it, and humans are very complicated, individually and as a species. So I hope that there's something particularly applicable for everybody that listened to this.
Me too. And I hope that the experiential, us telling the stories about it, will help you to identify, or you can really employ some different choices and perhaps develop some other skill sets, which will serve you really well. I mean, who likes to have messy stuff? I mean, if conflict can be avoided in a really honoring, respectful, integritous way, like, let's go there. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I just want to, I know we're starting to wrap up here and I might be adding a new topic, but I just want to acknowledge that I do have a pattern that I can recognize of I see potential conflict or some sort of a like we're not in alignment on what they're offering and what I'm offering. There's some sort of a misalignment here. The first thing I often do when I see it, especially if it's in a professional relationship, is okay, this isn't for me then. I don't discuss it. I don't let's have a meeting. And part of it might be avoidance, although I am comfortable with conflict and confrontation. But I think another part of me is like, I'm going to assume that they are happy with what they're being. And for example, Angie, the house cleaner, right? She did clean a good house. She just brought a lot of other stuff to the job that I was not open to, not appreciative of. Um, So could I have said, Angie, is there a way that you can come and clean and like we don't talk anything about your personal life? That to me would feel insulting. It's like, well, I was just talking about my dad. I mean, like she may not even acknowledge that she's doing it. So a part of it for me, I'm trying to be neutral about it and respectful enough that that's her flavor of ice cream. She's all rum raisin, and I don't like raisins in my ice cream. So I'm like, okay, this is rum raisin. I don't like rum raisin. Okay, so I think this is done, and I'll find another house cleaner, and there we go. I'm not going to talk badly about her house cleaning, but it's not a fit for me. But I do think that sometimes I miss an opportunity to go, okay, I've noticed this, and that isn't what I was looking for. Let's have a conversation. It's possible that that could have yielded a different outcome than me just kind of walking away from it. But I don't know. I do think that I have enough evidence of when I've tried that.
Mm.
They're rum raisin ice cream, and I just don't want raisins in my rum. And or I could have rum in my ice cream, but not raisins. I put up with the rum and not the raisins. I don't know why I'm using that metaphor. And I try not to be defensive, but just sort of acknowledging that I might be missing an opportunity. For those of you that are better at that, but those of you that are not willing to just like kind of cut your losses and move on to a different flavor of ice cream, maybe my example is that sometimes it can't be worked out and you're not doing anything wrong in that situation. Again, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly a different level of, self-awareness, I'll say, and I think that's all about internal guidance and, sometimes I try something different and sometimes I don't in those circumstances, and, it's not necessarily a right or wrong, and I don't wanna miss the opportunities when they present and it's a good thing and vice versa, and it's not a perfect world. That is a good thing to point out because it could be a missed opportunity. I mean, I've taken them sometimes and I was like, "Wow, I had no idea that there's all this other opportunity with this person because it feels, it's not necessarily risky, but kinda, it's more intimate. It's more, and it's been easier for me just to truncate or not. So it kind of probably depends on where you're coming from. And if you were rolling this way and you think you're too much this way, maybe you should roll a little this way just so you can have more rollability. Oh, me making up words again.
I love that. I was gonna say it too, rollability. That's so good. Ability to roll, rollability. I think it's a good add to the English language. I approve.
Oh, thanks, Jill. Thanks, everybody,
Oh,
for
thanks
listening.
everybody. And for all the conflict in your life, I'm just giving you a big hug. Whether you created it or asked for it or didn't ask for it or didn't create it, there it is. And we love you and we believe in you and just hope that you see maybe new choices in this for what you want to be in those situations.
Mhm. And please share and like and subscribe and all that stuff, we'd very much appreciate it, and comments are great too, they
Comments
are
are great.
inspiring.
Ratings. There are some
Ratings?
services
Yeah.
if you're doing this on Spotify on your laptop or yeah, because you can't do it from your phone, but from a laptop you can rate. Wow.
That would be great. Alright, thanks, Jill. Till next
Thanks
time.
everybody.